Phil Harris and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible fortnightly podcast, Dream Big, Move Fast.
A progressive, contemporary conversation on what it takes to be a dynamic thinker, leader, and role model.
Backed with over 2 decades of friendship, trials and tribulations that teach from real-world experience and what it takes to dream big, move fast. The true measure of your potential is not the height of the peak that you've reached, but how far you've climbed to get there. Adam Grant. Phil, what are your thoughts on this? It's a great quote.
It is a great quote, and it kind of taps into the theme that you and I have spoken about regularly, Josh, and that is that when we spoke about in the previous episode, like success is about how far you've come and what that journey has been. And even though we resist it a lot of the time, Josh, like we say we want growth, we say we want to become the best version of ourselves, we say we want to do great things, but the reality is that comes with sometimes things and pain that we don't want to experience, and that's where the growth is.
You know, Phil, I always have this great little diagram where I draw like a little stick figure on one side of the page, and on the other side I draw the sun, and people are like, "Oh, what's that?" I say, "Oh, this is a sun setting." You can tell
you actually often you do this. You draw this.
Yeah, I draw this. And then what I then do is I then literally go about halfway into the page, and I put another stick figure now that's closer to the sun. And I say, "Okay, great. This is the interesting thing about the horizon. You always see the sunset." But it doesn't matter if I take you another 100 meters closer, you're no closer to the actual sunset. But yet if you stop where you are and you look back, then you realize just how far you've come. And the distance between you and the sun, that's what we go to call anxiety, about how you would get to the future. And if you want to get that, then you've got to have gratefulness for what you've actually done, or gratitude for what you've actually done in the past to get you to where you are today. And I think it's a really nice thing to, give you that peace of mind that anxiety will always exist if you are naturally ambitious about where you're going to go, but there can be some great peace that can come into your world with the gratitude for just how far you've come. And, I love that, as a really basic foundational concept that, if we're going to talk today a lot about, the systems for success, the meeting rhythms in order to be able to go and have a great business, then it'll make a big difference for you. I got to tell you, there was a book called Meeting by Cameron Herold, which has probably inspired this particular episode so much. And literally, he just had a couple of basics ideas in that, and he's like, no agenda, no attenda. Literally and foundationally, you just don't hang out in meetings that suck. And I think meetings can really suck a lot of time and a lot of energy, but most importantly, a lot of willpower. And Phil, have you ever been in a sales meeting where you felt more depressed after the sales meeting than when you'd walked in?
Yeah, definitely. Probably the vast majority of most of my sales meetings.
And you were running them. Yeah. That's the best.
That's right. It was my slide deck.
Yeah.
No, totally. And I think that, we speak about this many times. There are a lot of things that we do in this industry, only because it's just because what we've always done. Like, we've never actually put some of these things under the microscope. So number one, is the meeting actually essential? And number two, if we're going to have it, what would be the best way to actually do it? Mm-hmm. What is the purpose of this meeting? How can we actually get some outcomes from what we're trying to achieve?
So let's go and talk about that. We'll break down the strategy. Meeting Suck is the book. Cameron Herold is definitely worthwhile going to read. Sure. It's made a foundational difference in the way that we would run a meeting. The first one, without a doubt, every meeting must have a purpose. So what's the purpose of the sales meeting? Make great sales. Okay, great. Beyond that, who are the people that we need to have in the room? So what are the specific people that need to be there in that particular room so we've got the right attendees at the right time? And then what resources might we need? Do we need a whiteboard? Do we need some printed materials? Do we need some sort of digital materials? You get the idea. And then in addition to that, who are the very specific people that we've got in terms of some very basic roles? So you might have a chair who kind of chairs the meeting, keeps it running. You might have someone, for example, who's parking lot. So when someone says something that's not appropriate, parking lot, we don't really need to know about the new cheesecake shop down the road. We do, but later. That's not appropriate right now when we're talking about how we're getting listings. And then the secondary part is that then, okay, great, we need a timer. 1 minute left, so then that way we know that we're only a minute. So actually have it there. We then think about what are the specific subjects or the specific items that are going to be on that particular meeting. And when we think about them, they need to have a time limit on them. So opening and welcome might be 1 minute. Running through the Harris values might be 3 minutes. Talking about new properties to market might be 5 minutes. And so then that way we've got a very clear timed agenda so everyone knows they've got to pay attention to really nail it here. And then thinking about how do I actually want someone to interact in this part of the meeting. So in this part of the meeting, it's an information download. Phil's just going to talk to us about what's happened in the training environment. Or is this actually going to be a vote? So guys, who thinks we should hold the training at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre? You get the idea. Or should this be a creative discussion? Has anyone seen a great idea where we could hold the awards night? And so that way you're involving people. And when people know contextually how they're supposed to contribute in that part of the meeting, it can make it a much more effective meeting because then they know what to do. And understanding that there might be sections of the meeting where you're not needed. Very early on, I had the chance to come and do a presentation or a conversation with your board, and I knew that I was there for that part, but I wasn't there for the whole day. And that's a really important thing, that I don't have to be there for the whole day. But contextually, it was a merger or something that you were considering at the time, and you wanted my thoughts on how you would do that. And we came in and gave some information download to the board, and that was the contribution. And this is why when you do that and you've got that agenda, it makes a massive difference to the overall success. That agenda's got to go out early. People have got to have accessibility to that. And what you want is you want everyone to do the pre-thinking before they get to the meeting. In the old school real estate offices, they're like, okay, great. Phil, how many listings this week? And Phil would pull out his old diary and he'd start flicking through the pages. Well, there was the one in Jones Street and, flicks a couple of pages again, then there's Smith Street. You're like, oh man, you just should know this stuff before you even get here. And that's how time actually gets wasted. And I kind of see that. I was working with an Italian client recently, a really lovely guy, but the beautiful suites are coming in and the coffees are coming in, and it's a 3.5 hour sales meeting that's happening. And it's like lovely, but we're just not going to hit commercial success in that level of operation. What are your thoughts as hearing some of that as a quick just revisit to some of the essentials?
It's definitely re-triggering some trauma, Josh, of, as I said, my meetings and others. But no, definitely, I agree. And by the way, I think if we're kind of touching there on the sales meeting, I think there are some things that are staying and some things that are going. Like, I don't believe that necessarily for every environment the weekly sales meeting is appropriate anymore, Josh. But in some environments in smaller offices, I think that it really is. For some of our guys in our head office, we have people selling a couple hundred homes per year. They can't stand to sit still for 1 hour on a Monday morning. But I think the things that come to mind for me, if we talk specifically about sales meetings, and I like kind of the way that you've set that up, but there's 3 things we really focus on inside our sales meetings. Number 1 is education. So we can't have a sales meeting where people don't walk away actually better off than when they walked in the room, right? So if you're just there to kind of go around the circle, here's what we've listed, here's what we've sold, you don't really achieve anything. I think that's really dangerous. So I say number 1 is education. Number 2 is an element of entertainment as well. Like, it does actually need to be high energy and fun.
Yeah,
like
Frosty the Clown.
Yeah, well, you said it before. You can't have people walk. If the guys, doesn't matter, irrespective of the market,
they got to feel good.
They got to walk out the room feeling like they're on the winning team, and there is some hope in what they're actually doing.
Sure.
So if they're educated, there is an element of fun. Like, we start every single sales meeting. We have like our world class heads and tails, all right, where it's stand up, you play for a $250 dinner voucher, heads and tails. Takes like 2 minutes. You gradually make your way down. The winner takes all. Gets a so there's always something fun and something updating. And the third thing is praise. Like, salespeople need praise.
Recognition.
Yeah, they need recognition, right? So if they're getting education, so they walk out there smarter, whether that be about contract law, whether that be about a sales skill, whether that be about interest rates, there's always a financial market update. So they're educated, they feel good, and they're being praised for people who've actually done something good inside the organisation. I think you're a long way down the track of holding a successful sales meeting.
So let's run through a sample sales meeting agenda. So the sales meeting, it's a 32-minute meeting. In this particular case, it's a weekly. The purpose of the meeting is to drive more sales and create opportunity. Love that. Okay, great. So values for 1 minute. So let's talk about the values inside the organisation. I think you've got 3 very significant values inside of the Harris organisation. So grow as a leader, think like a team, be like the customer, something along those lines.
Close.
Okay, great. And so we get those values. Now, give me a good example of where someone in the business has actually lived out that particular value. So we start talking about that.
And we start with that. Every sales meeting, Josh, we recognise people have performed under those values.
Okay, great. Good news. So maybe someone's got their first listing, first sale, high sale price. You've got that one away that's been on the market for a long period of time, so you're starting to think about that. Need to know. So that's a great one too. So these are new legislative changes to first home buyer grants, things that you might need to know from a compliance perspective. New listings this week, that might be for 5 minutes. Forthcoming auctions for 5 minutes. Sales this week, so leftover buyers, so for 5 minutes. So we just sold Jones Street. There were 3 underbidders. Does anyone have another 3-bedroom coming up in that local area that buy could be put onto? Prospecting this week. So guys, here are some really good initiatives over the next 3 minutes that we're going to talk about. We think that literally there's a really good chance to go and talk to over 55s because the government changes on superannuation. So let's go and channel that. Appointment number review. So where are we at in terms of the numbers across the team? And that might be for 3 minutes. Again, this is probably more of a small organisation. And then deal support for 5 minutes. So guys, let's pull out a random property right now that's not selling and talk about how we as a team could help to get that particular property sold. And that might be, okay, great. Does anyone know a buyer? Does anyone know someone who might upgrade? Could we go and talk to some previous appraisals that might step up and buy something like that, because if that top end's blocked, it's probably the price range before. So really clean, efficient sort of sales meeting to kind of get things operating.
It's pretty good, Josh. I like it.
And then let's go and have a look at the property management one, right? Because not a lot of people actually think about what a property management meeting would be. So again, it's a 15-minute one. This is a daily meeting in this particular case. The purpose is to drive the focus of the property management team to be aware of any issues and opportunities that might be happening. So first heading here, what's ahead today? So for 3 minutes, let's talk a little bit about that. Any emergency events that we need to be across, that's for 2 minutes. Any sign-up meetings today, that's going to be for 2 minutes. Any new business opportunities, we're going to do that for 3 minutes. Routines, arrears and maintenance, where are we at those for 3 minutes. And anything else we should know, for 2 minutes. And I kind of love that because it's just like clean and punchy and straight to it. That might be really small in a pod as opposed to a total property management team or a property manager and maybe the leasing team or a BDM in a smaller business where they're actually coming together and having those conversations. And, we have a business, for example, in regional Australia that actually has a meeting where their administration and their reception team meet every day. Who's coming in the office today? What's going on in the business today? Who's picking up keys today? What do we need to be organised about? So that way, when Josh Phegan walks into the room, they're like, who are you here for? I'm here for Phil. Phil who? And you actually start to have proper conversations, or the plumbers are going to pick up the keys for Jones Street. So let's make sure that we've got them downstairs ready and that we're aware of that. So we don't have people waiting in reception for hours on end because we're just not organised. Thoughts about just some simple things to run a great real estate practice when you hear some of that?
Yeah, I really like it. There's some really simple things there. And, I'm a firm believer in, probably, I probably struggled with meetings going back earlier in my career, but now I really see meetings, your meeting rhythms, Josh, are like the, on the bowling alley, the bumpers when you take your kids bowling.
Sure.
And like it just aligns you so you actually can't bowl a gutter ball. So I think that when you actually establish the correct set of meeting rhythms inside with the right agenda and the right preparation, then it very quickly and easily aligns. And that's probably a good leading question for you, Josh. If I'm a salesperson and I'm tuning in, what's the right set of meeting rhythms that's going to keep me on track? What does that look like?
I'm a really basic one where I think that every day you have a daily meeting, and that daily meeting should be sitting at the top of your calendar. And so you've just got a couple of key things. So what's ahead today? What new listings have come into our marketplace and have been sold in the course of the last 24 hours? Who are the past market appraisals, past clients, buyers, sellers, people that we know that would be impacted by those particular results? Because that's a good call list for us to go after today. Is there anything that we left over from yesterday that needs to be done today? Let's go and get that done. So that's a quick stand-up meeting at the start of every day, 5 or 6 minutes.
So they're your dailies, whether it's by yourself or with the team?
Exactly.
That's it.
When I see you talking about yourself, I just think you're having a team meeting. But so we do that, and then at around...
And key takeaway for the guys there, like I've seen you preach this before. You've got that that's an all-day appointment in your Outlook calendar, right?
Yeah, so you double-click on the calendar item, it just brings it up.
Agenda drops down, so you're totally...
You know exactly what you're doing.
You're dialed in straight away, right?
And then what we then do is a 3 p.m. loop back. So at 3 p.m. loop back, okay, great. Hey, Phil, wanted to know, is there anything we need to get done by the end of today? I just want to give you a quick update on Jones Street, West Street, Smith Street. That's what's happened. So you know what's going on. So you're working with your head of ops or whoever else is inside of your team. It's a quick phone call if you're not in the office, but you make sure you try to do that. Kylie and my team and I, we do that every day at 3 o'clock. Once I finish on stage, so to speak. And then the other driver on that is that I don't need a report from her about what's gone on for the day. We happen to use a communications tool called Slack inside of our business. And every single time that something's happening inside the business, she just sends me a direct message on that. So I've got it sitting there. It's not pinging on my phone because I don't have the notifications turned on. But when I finish at 3 o'clock, I quickly go into Slack and have a look at Kylie's channel. She's like, Phil Harris has called. He's just wanted to confirm that he's going to be meeting with you on Saturday. Jenna Harris has called and said that she's going to be coming to the meeting as well. And Phil doesn't know, and it's going to be a surprise for his birthday. So all of that sort of stuff. And we're getting that happened at 9 o'clock, and that happened at 11:11, and that one happened at 2:30. So by the time that we're speaking at 3 o'clock, I've already pre-read that. So, or if I haven't had a chance to read it, then Kylie will just go through those items with me. So then we actually know. And it's not about not trusting. It's just we're a fast-moving organisation. We don't have time to sit and wait. And I think that when you hear people go, I'm going to write you a summary email at the end of the day, I couldn't think of a greater way to destroy someone's life, because it should just be a quick message as those things go on. But it does lead you to understanding your communications preferences inside of your organisation, which is an important one. So in our world, as an example, SMS is only used for really urgent things, like if someone's passed away or if there's a major catastrophe. We've had a murderer on the loose in Sydney. We've had, for example, an earthquake during the middle of one of my events. And so if those sorts of things are going on, then Kylie would SMS that. I say don't ring and leave me like 4 missed calls like during the middle of the day, because I'm going to freak out that something serious has gone on, where an SMS is what we do for that. Slack is for anything that's non-time dependent. Email is literally for a client summary or where we need a legal trail in place on a particular item. And And then after that, we then start saying, okay, that's just the way that we actually meet. So then that way we're more efficient. I feel it leads me to probably one of the great quotes I heard very early on is that a lot of people are very strategically negligent, but tactically excellent. So they're great in the lounge rooms, but they don't have much strategy. And so I wanted to talk to you on about operations meetings. Okay, so inside of any business, making sure that you've got good operations, and particularly smaller businesses, they don't necessarily have the depth of talent or the leadership team there. So it's a smaller group of people. It might be you and maybe your operations manager, or you maybe in one or two others, the head of PM or something. How do we actually make sure the business gets more strategic? And we were involved in helping an organization of 100 plus people to get better. And in that, we actually said what was missing is that they didn't have an operations meeting. So the purpose of the operations meeting is to actually have effortless glide in how this thing works. All right, so let's think about it. We're going to have recruitment at the start of that. It's a 5-minute part, and it's a discussion about who we're recruiting and what that looks like. Sales for 3 minutes. It's an information downloaded about how the business is actually going in the sales environment right now and having a look at the key metrics. PM for 3 minutes. It's an information download, what's happening inside of the property management environment. Finance for 3 minutes, information download about how we're going and the cash flow projections and what's happening inside of the business. So we're getting a good look across that. Marketing, 5 minutes, a discussion thing. What are we doing to market and build the brand and how's that actually working? And then general business discussion for 5 minutes or so. So having a quick look at that, you're kind of like looking at a meeting, I don't know, circa 30 minutes every week operationally, just to make sure the business is going. And I think if we had that at Harris in week one of when we started the organisation, or when you were there, what are your thoughts about having that as an operations meeting just to give people contextual awareness?
I think it's really good and gives you, the structure of the things that need to be spoken about. Then the only thing I would bolt on to that, which is the major Achilles heel and the weakness of the industry, is putting a who, what, when attached to it.
Yeah, sure.
I think we all walk in and out of great meetings. Yeah, like there's great meetings, but there's no accountability around actually getting the appropriate actions done. So
I love that. In our business, we use a tool. I think you still use it. Was Asana. Yeah. And inside of Asana, it was like literally that whenever we do the meeting agenda actually runs in Asana, and then all of the actions that come out of that are actually recorded by the person whose actions inside of that meeting role. And so that way, there's no way to go missing, and then they're dated and timed. So literally, I'd say to get that done by
I think that's a really good tip for anybody listening. I think the sooner that you move towards a digital platform, whatever that is, that has accountability around every single task in relation, particularly to you're probably not going to get that around salespeople operating like that, because they're all kind of to-dos, they're ticking off and they're going.
Yeah,
but
sure.
anything that is a strategic conversation at a management operational level where you're working towards a plan or an agenda like that, there needs to be digital accountability.
So when we meet as our team, it might surprise you, it might not, but we only have one laptop in the room, and that's literally that person who's writing actions. Everyone else, no digital devices in front of them.
And what's the platform you're using to store those actions?
So everything inside of Asana.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so like Asana is all about all of the projects and the orientation. It's kind of like, someone goes, oh, how do you run a blueprint? Well, there's about 865 tasks to do that.
Yeah, great.
So like it's not a new thing. It's like literally our 14th year doing it. So we know exactly what's got to go down to the detail of no clicker pens, and literally we don't want crockery underneath a water jug, so it actually just keeps on smashing. Like, and I know that sounds funny, but like it really did my head in on the clicker pens.
But they're all that's
the lessons learned, right?
That's all the constant iterations you keep doing, and that's where like salespeople, you think about that just listed checklist or the soul checks. One little slight thing goes wrong, whether it be the clicker pens or the highlighters or the crockery or the whatever. It's like, okay, you go back to the drawing board and you keep refining and you keep getting better.
So let's have a look at some additional sales meetings. One of the ones that I do in the sales team, or when I'm working with a small team, let's say an agent, maybe a co-agent and an operations person in their team, I would say to them, what I really love is a Monday meeting, which is in addition to your daily directions for about 15 minutes or so, called buyer hit list. Did we meet any buyers over the weekend or over the course of last week who really need to buy, that might have maybe sold their property last weekend, need to buy by a certain date, were an underbidder on an auction, have made an offer on a property that was not accepted, or have got a real level of urgency, aka like a job relocation? And who are those people? Because we've got to get them across stock or maybe some existing market appraisals. We've got to try to bring to market quite quickly to land them. I love that meeting because it keeps the buyers really refreshed. And I kind of think a little bit about like a pinball machine. The ball's dropping down and boo, it's hit that pin and now it's gone down that particular chute. So this person is a buyer, but now they bought a copy of the pest and building report. They're now on my buyer hit list. So what are the triggers that actually force a new customer journey around that? And if you've got a really good quality list of buyers, I think that will change the game. On a Tuesday, I then do a potential seller or market appraisal one. What I do with a lot of agents, it's quite funny. I go back like 3 months ago and I'll choose a random month. I'm like, okay, great. Phil, I want you to write down the heading November. And now what I want you to do is I want you to write down every appraisal you went on in November. And everyone always looks at me like, oh man, I can't remember that. That's exactly. So what's the systems that's missing? So now what we do is we say, okay, great. On a Tuesday, potential seller or market appraisal, for 15 minutes, I want you to sit there and I want you to read through every market appraisal you've done in your career. I want you to look at the street address. I want you to look at the name of the person. And I want you just to go, oh, geez, I saw Phil the other day. I should ring him. Oh, geez, I saw Henry the other day. I should ring him. Oh, like I was in a position and I saw Georgie the other day. I should ring her. And so then that way it kind of tills it through the mind. So you're actually getting really clear about this pipeline that you've actually got. And that's interesting. A lot of people will use new tools like Asana or Trello and Monday.com and all that sort of stuff to actually have like set up these, the boards, so they can kind of move people in and out and see it visually, because salespeople are often very visual. And then the third thing is that then on a Wednesday, I go to call, it's a listing review. We used to call this stock control sheets, all the above. I now call it listing review because I think if a customer saw stock control, it would be a bit interesting. But a listing review is, okay, great. How are all my current campaigns going and what do I need to do to make sure they're on track? So inquiries, inspections, second appointments, contract requests, pests and builds and offers. And if I'm seeing any alarmist things happening, that by day 9, no second appointment, by day 14, for example, no offer, that I'm moving very quickly to actually have a proper managed sales process around that. So my thought is that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's it. Thursday, Friday, do whatever, just your normal daily directions. The benefit of doing that is profound, because if you get the first couple of days of the week owned, the rest of the week's easy. Thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely brilliant. It gives people actual structure to work towards, and the guys can plug in. And once again, it's about iteration. Keep making the changes that are appropriate and keep heading the right direction.
Yeah, and I think that the whole idea here is that, what you've got to do is you've got to start thinking that like literally short, sharp meetings are a really great way to run a phenomenal life. And if you're checking in on things regularly, it's giving you that perspective. So you're going back in on that zone and really making sure that they can go that level of momentum. And, maybe it's time to go back and just refresh on some of the meeting agendas that you've already got in place to then significantly change the way that you work. Well, Phil, it leads actually naturally to a very simple principle today, and it's called no agenda, no attender. What are your thoughts about that? If someone says, hey, I need you to come to the meeting, and if they don't give you the agenda, Phil just doesn't turn up.
Yeah, I've been guilty on both sides.
Calling meetings without agendas?
Yeah, definitely. But no, I think that, I'd go even one step further, which is, it's no agenda, no attender. But like if there's no action list at the end of it, it's been a pointless meeting.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? So like exit that meeting, know what the outcome is, put an action on it, put a date on it, and put somebody's initials to it, and let's have some accountability around it.
Phil, I just wanted to finish on that. You triggered that whole idea about make sure there's a good vibe. Right. So when you think about it, like I don't want blinking lights. I want beautiful, fresh, energy whenever you walk into a room, music that might be playing prior. Everyone's there. Everyone's on time. And I don't know about you, but I'm an on-time organisation. So you've been to plenty of my training, and I've had the chance to run plenty of training inside of your organisation, and I always had that time counting down. When that thing hits 0, man, I'm not waiting.
Good to go.
It's running. And I think that reward the people that turn up. And what's the old school saying, 10 minutes before, that's actually on time. On time, like literally when it's supposed to start at 9 o'clock, that's actually late. And don't bring your crunchy toast in, like literally be pre-organized before you get there. Feeling good and ready for more? Thanks for joining us
On Dream Big,
Move Fast.